Welcome back to the Mail Right Show. Today is episode 277, and we're here with Nick Niehaus. Now, Nick is somebody that we pursued like a dog on a hunt. We got him in on the show, and we literally are super excited to have Nick because he is a trainer and a coach. And what he trains on is something that John and I talk about incessantly, which is video. So today's show is going to be a lot of great tips about how to use the tools that you already have and how to start putting video into your daily routine. So having said all that, Nick, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the amazing Mail Right audience and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me today. I've been looking forward to our conversation. And I want to also congratulate you guys on being ahead of the curve when it comes to video, because I can see how much you're doing with it already. And it's very good. Obviously, it's working well for you. So my background is, I've been working with real estate agents specifically for about 5 years now. I've been an entrepreneur for over a decade. And in that time, we've really realized that video is an incredibly powerful business tool, not just for marketing, but there's all kinds of different areas that we use. So I started helping real estate agents with a business called Connect Marketing, which is now Connect Video, because we became so obsessed with video that kind of became our main thing we were doing. And we worked with, hundreds of real estate agents over those years. And a lot of them, we were making their very first ever video with them in our studio. And what happened was a lot of them actually got business from this very first video. We would run a little ad. They'd get a transaction from it. They make thousands and thousands of dollars off their first video. And then they never made another video, and we sort of asked ourselves like, okay, what's going on here? You would think you're getting this massive ROI on day one, you would want to come back to it. And we started asking questions and we started digging in and we realized, our experience with video was a learning curve that took many years. In fact, I would argue we're still learning a lot about how to use video in our own business. And so we looked at a lot of these agents who had come in and done a video with us, and we asked them, like, have you ever made a video with your phone? Have you ever tried to do some of the stuff on your own? Are you sending video messages? Like, where else are you using this? And they just didn't know where to start, right? They weren't sure the technical steps or any of that stuff. And so that led us to starting a pilot back in December of 2019 of something we were just sort of calling Business Video School at the time as a placeholder name. And then obviously everybody knows what happened, a few months later when the pandemic, erupted and shut down our video production. We really couldn't get together to shoot videos with people. And so that's when we decided to sort of pivot to launching Business Video School as its own entity. And we brought some extra partners in. And so now they're two different businesses. So they are completely separated as companies, but they're both still in operation. So on the one hand, we teach mostly real estate agents how to make videos. And on the Connected Video side, we still produce videos for a lot of small businesses.
Amazing. I have so many questions, but before we get into that, John, we are getting 100 or 200 new listeners each show. So for all those new people, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thanks, Robert. I'm the founder and joint owner of Mail Right, which is a marketing platform. We use technology to market your real estate business and the power of Facebook with a number of well-used and developed tools. It's a great product, especially for the newbie agent or the agent in their second, third year. Go to the Mail Right website, book a demo, find out more.
My name is Robert Newman. I will be your sommelier of video marketing and real estate marketing here for I'll guide the conversation with a lot of help from John, who keeps me from wandering off too much in my conversations. And if you don't mind, John, I'll kick off the first set. Oh, and I'm the founder of Inbound REM. Guys, just do the word inbound, Rabbit Edward Michael, and .com, and you can learn everything and more that you ever want to know about me. So, and I'm pretty cool, so you should do it. So, Nick, hey, so you've got these two exciting. We could spend a show on each one of your businesses if I'm honest about it, but let's focus on the business that you established to trying to teach real estate agents to use their cell phones. So sure. I'm a real estate agent. Here's the way I'd like to phrase this question. I'm an agent. Mm-hmm. I know video is important. I've heard it 1,000 times, including on this own show, right? I've heard it from everybody. I just don't know how to get into it. Yes, I got a phone. What do you and I'm interested. I want to do it. but I've never really done it. I've been in real estate for 10 years. What do you tell? How are you going to leverage a conversation with that agent?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that number one, I would say you got to start extremely simple. And I think this is where a lot of people get it wrong from day one, is that what we're doing. So it's interesting because we explore video, obviously, but what we've also ended up exploring as we built this school is the way that adults learn, right? So the most adults actually don't learn very well. And actually, if you compare
You don't
children
say.
to, right, yeah, I mean, we just sort of assume we know everything we need to, and we take random shots in the dark with a lot of things we do in our business. And it's really a shame, because the truth is, proper learning is very steady, it's consistent, and there's a lot of practice, right? If you look at children when they learn in school, and I hated doing homework as a kid because a lot of times it was more practice than I maybe needed, but it's one of those things where like you do lots and lots of work sets, you do lots of work, you do homework, you have all these problems you're doing to practice the things that the teacher taught you, and it's only then that you actually retain the lesson, right? And so then we get to adulthood and our brains are actually not as flexible anymore. It actually takes us a little more effort to learn and remember things. And we do the exact opposite. We start to look at other people, because we're very competitive by nature, most of us as business owners. And we see somebody else doing something with video, this applies in a lot of other areas too. And we try to copy what they're doing today. And we don't ask ourselves, what did they do before today to get to the point where they are now, right? And so there's oftentimes, especially with video, by the time someone is making stuff that's good enough that you actually like it and want to imitate it, I can almost guarantee they've been making videos for at least a year. And they've probably been doing it weekly, if not daily, for that entire time. And that's a lot of practice that they have that you do not yet, right? So I think that's sort of number one with most agents that are thinking about getting into this, is just put all that aside. Like don't try to worry about imitating anybody. Don't be competitive with them. And then go all the way back to the beginning and sort of ask yourself, what's the very first thing I should learn to do? And for me, that's always learn to make the absolute simplest possible video that you can with whatever you have in your house already, right? And for most of us, that's just a phone, right? I mean, most of us don't even have a nicer camera. So that's all you need, right? So from day one, it's really about simple stuff. I mean, I would argue you should make selfie videos. So you just hold your phone up in front of you, look at it, talk to it for a few minutes, or less than a minute, ideally, because people like short form content now. And then that's it, right? No editing, nothing else. And then you don't need to share it either. I mean, I think that when you're first getting started, I would say make a couple videos that only you ever see. I mean, getting used to seeing and hearing yourself on camera is one of the first steps you need to take. And then the next thing you would do is only share videos with one person at a time, right? So think about sending, video birthday greetings, anniversary wishes, just, little, I was thinking about you, so I thought I'd say hi kind of things. You can send them through Facebook Messenger, all the messenger platforms, email. And so I think if you start there and you keep it really simple, it'll be easy to build on those basic skills later.
Gotcha. I have a lot to say about that, but John, before I jump in, because we both know that I can get long-winded, what do you have to say to that? Those amazing tips?
Yeah, I think, Nick, you made some excellent points there, because you obviously you want to do the best, but looking at the best can actually be depowering, because it stops you, like what the Chinese said, every 1,000-mile journey starts with one step. Mm-hmm. So you got to make that first step, and a lot of people, they won't do it. But so I think your insight there was fantastic. But the other thing, and I just wanted your input, is I think with the iPhone and some of the other phone cameras, the technology, the quality that you can get is quite amazing. But the one area that I feel you've got to get right, which is not very intuitive, is sound. So what's your thoughts about what I've just said, Nick?
Well, yeah, I think that's a great point. I think a lot of people, if you ask a professional director or somebody that makes movies or TV shows, I mean, they'll actually tell you that sound is more than 50% of what goes into making a good piece of video content, right? Because ultimately, I mean, sound and the clarity of the sound is, it's easy to overlook and it's really easy to screw up. But it's really important, because if somebody can't understand what you're saying, they're not going to watch the video, right? I mean, they're just going to move on from there. So, and that's actually been proven, is that people have a tendency to watch a video with a little bit, poor quality lighting, or maybe it's kind of grainy, but the sound is clear and they can hear the person. They're more likely to watch that video longer than when it's the other way around, when the video is really clear, but the sound is hard to understand, right? So I think in terms of what you can do there, number one, the main thing you got to remember with sound is get the microphone close to your mouth. I think that's kind of the main rule. Not in your mouth, but you've seen, if you watch like a singer in the studio, I mean, they've got them, the microphone basically right up in their face, because the closer the source of the sound is to the microphone, the more of the sound waves it's going to be able to pick up, and it's just going to be a clearer signal, right?
So have you got any insights and quick advice about how you deal with that when you're using an iPhone?
Yeah, I mean, I think, what it comes down to is just plug in a microphone. I think you can mess with, obviously, if you keep the phone relatively close to yourself, you might have to worry about it. And I will say the newer phones have much better microphones. Actually, a lot of them have multiple microphones in them. So they can even sort of be a little bit directional in terms of where they're picking up the sound from. But if you just plug a mic in the most basic form of a microphone that we all have is a set of headphones, right? So if you plug a set of headphones into your phone, you've got the wire hanging down the side of your face, and the microphone is right there because it's for making phone calls. That's going to, at the very least, it's going to get clear audio, right? It might not be the highest quality because it's a really basic, cheap microphone, but at least that's one step you can take. And then a step further would be to just invest in a lapel microphone. So if you go on Amazon and you just search for like lapel mic, and then whatever model of phone you have, because if you have an iPhone, you want one with the right jack on it. Those things can run anywhere from $10 usually on the cheapest end to, hundreds of dollars. You probably don't need one of those quite yet. But that kind of mic is going to also give you really crisp and clean audio. And what you do is you just clip it to your shirt about 8 inches below your mouth.
How do you deal with the new iPhones that don't have a jack?
So you need the adapter. Yeah. So there's either an adapter you can buy, and I'm blanking on. I mean, they call it a dongle. So if you just Google iPhone dongle, you'll find them. But they also make headphones that have that particular. Again, I don't remember the name of the jack, but they have that built into them. So if you look for a mic, if you just Google lapel microphone iPhone, you will find models that plug directly into the phone.
Over to you, Robert.
So I'm going to go back a little bit to the original comments that you made, because learning and teaching have been a lifetime fascination with me, and which is probably why I transitioned into video myself fairly well and fairly easily, is because in all of my positions, one of my favorite things to do has been to teach people that I'm in an organization with how to make that organization work better in the areas that I feel like I have something to contribute. Having said that, what you described, take some video for yourself, send them to somebody through Facebook Messenger. That's what your first piece of advice was. Mm-hmm. Interestingly enough, in high school, when I was a theater student, the first piece of advice that I ever remember getting, I'm not saying it was what I got, but the first thing that we ever were told was stand in front of a mirror and run whatever the lines are to yourself in the mirror. The advice still holds true, because getting used to looking at yourself through a third perspective, or if you're a family person and you've got a husband, a wife, or kids, have them just record a 5-10 minute video, or even 30 seconds, and then look at it yourself, see what you feel. Don't say anything to anybody. That's my one addition to what you said. Don't tell anybody what your private dialogue about that video is. Like, did you do a good job? Did you do a bad job? Whatever that is that you felt you did, don't say anything. Hand it off to your family members and see if they respond to the video in which the same way that you're thinking. I have found that to be one of the most useful exercises that I do in creating my own videos for my own company. Is I run them by my brother who works with me or my team members, and I have a silent opinion about the job I did. Good, bad, a little bit wordy, whatever it is. If it matches the opinion of a few people, like if they say the same thing, I kind of understand that the videos I'm recording are exactly what's happening in my head, and that's exactly how people are perceiving them. That's my additional tip. How do you feel about my tip, Nick?
Yeah,
I'm stealing from John. He always does that. How do you think about what I just said? So how do you think about what I just said?
I love it. No, it's good. I mean, I think that's where the hardest part of video is overthinking it, is treating it as this sort of performance that you have to judge yourself over. That, we just have people in the studio and we get their video done and they're watching it back and they're like, oh, but I've got this like piece of hair. It's just kind of sticking out, just sort of slightly weird. And I'm like, nobody else saw that, like you're the only person that notices those things. Nobody else cares about that. Right. So I think that's a great point, is that, you're always, in my experience, like you're always going to be your worst critic, right? I mean, not a single other person, unless they're just having the worst day of their life or something, is going to say anything close to the sort of really mean, critical things that we say to ourselves. And, I mean, eventually you get to the point where you're going to get used to hearing yourself and seeing yourself on camera. It's actually, there's interesting psychological reasons that we are predisposed to not like our own videos. Number one is just the audio thing. Like our voice, all of our own voices in our head sounds lower than when it's recorded, right? So everyone else hears it the way it's recorded, but we don't in our own head. And so that automatically is going to happen. The more of it you hear, the more you get used to it. And then the video part is even more interesting. Everyone is used to seeing themselves in the mirror. So every morning we wake up, we see ourselves in the mirror. In the evenings, all day. That's really the only way we traditionally see ourselves, on a consistent basis. When you see yourself in a mirror, the image is actually flipped, right? It's a mirror image, so it's flipped around. So when you watch a video of yourself, you're actually oriented differently than you're used to seeing yourself, right? And our faces are all slightly different on one side or the other, and it's almost imperceptible to the eye, but it makes us feel, it's like a doppelganger effect, right? The way we look on camera just feels a little bit different than the way we see that mirror image. But again, everyone else sees us the way we look on camera. They don't see the mirror image of us, right? So there's these two automatic things that happen when we see ourselves in a video for the first time. And as you see it more and you get more used to it, it just sort of dissipates eventually.
Awesome.
Oh,
Hey, how are we doing on time, John?
Oh, we need to go for our break, actually, Rob.
All right. So we're going to go for a break. When we come back, John is going to continue his thought. And then I have a question for Nick as well. Thank you for tuning into the show. Do us a favor, drop us a comment. Welcome back to the Mail Right Show. We are on episode 277. We're meeting with the inestimable, like I got to stop using words that I can't actually say, Nick Niehaus. And I've got my amazing co-host, Jonathan, with me today. And we've been talking about video. John was in the middle of a question before we went to our break. So
no,
John,
it was just a quick observation. I just loved what Nick was saying there. It was just fantastic stuff, wasn't it, Robert?
Yeah. So I have a question for you, though. And this is for our audience that may be joining us at the halfway mark. So you obviously, I love the way that you're presenting things in this conversation. I feel like, hey, this guy knows how to educate, because you're giving a lot of really good, you're inside your students' minds and you're trying to serve them. And that to me is a sign of of a person, a human trying to do a good job for education. But here is a question. I love stories. Tell me the story of one of your students that had an aha moment with video. You must have had it.
Yeah, I think there's kind of so many of them, and one of the challenges that we have is like, we're not teaching in person, right? So a lot of these things sort of happen behind the scenes. But I will talk about, so one of the things I think is hardest with video is getting started. I think the very first video somebody makes is almost always going to be the hardest video that, to sort of face down, right? And especially when you go to share it. I think that, so maybe it's both of those sorts of scenarios. So I won't, name names, but there's a gentleman in our school who, and this is a frequent story, so this probably applies to dozens of people, but he's been in business for a long time. He's already a successful real estate agent, and he's been feeling this sense of pressure, right? So the sense of, I keep hearing I'm supposed to be doing video, and I keep hearing that it's going to change the way, that I operate my business, going to make things better. But I just, I don't know how to get started, right? I'm not really sure what those first steps are. And so, for a year, I mean, it literally is years for a lot of folks. It just keeps building that pressure, right? Because every time you hear it from another person or you see another agent put a video out, he's sitting there going, man, I know I need to do this. And there's just another example of it happening. And I'm getting that FOMO. I feel like I'm really missing out on this opportunity. And so he was in the school for even a couple months, and he was taking the classes, and he still hadn't shared a video. He still hadn't made a video. And finally he signed up for, and I was a little bit surprised to see his name on the list, but he signed up for something we do called accountability challenges, because we know that this is so hard for people. So we create this program where every 4 to 6 weeks, and we usually tie them to specific holidays, we'll do a challenge where everybody splits up into different teams in the school, and it's an opt-in, so they don't have to do it, but they get to sign up for it. And then we give them a theme. So we did one for Halloween, we did one for Christmas, we're doing one right now for Valentine's Day. And basically their job is to just make a video with that theme, right? It's very open-ended. Sure. We give them scripts, we give them templates, make it as easy as we possibly can. And then we compete, right? So there's that extra element of the team is counting on you. And so, what he ended up saying in his video, that he even, said it in the video that he made, was, hey, this is what finally got me over the edge. This is what finally got me to make that very first video, because I knew other people were now counting on me to come through for my team, right? So I just thought that was so cool. And actually since then, he's been making a lot more videos, right? Because he got that first one done. And now it becomes something that he knows he can do, right? So he's sort of empowered in that way. And so, one of my takeaways from that story is that I would really encourage people to find an accountability partner, right? I mean, we sort of facilitate that inside our school, but even if you're doing this stuff on your own, find someone else that can hold you to actually getting it done, at the very least for the first few videos, right? And then once you're through that phase, you're going to have some momentum. And from there, it's just so much easier.
That is, I love that, that aha story. So I'm going to share one with the audience. I'm going to share one with my co-host too, because I have one now in my service. I'm the person that my clients are accountable to. I just literally these days, which I don't even think John knows, when I take on a client, I tell them they have to do video. It has been in my big complicated websites that I build, they increase revenue by 300% consistently across the board. So if you don't have them, you're so much shooting yourself in the foot that I don't even want to build the project or partner with the client at this point. I just want them to do video. So I had this client that actually embraced the concept, and he embraced it exactly the way I told him to do it. He just took a camera. He had his wife sit in the car, or no, actually it was his sister, sit in the car with him. And they emulated a video that I had done with a client like 2 years prior, where I was driving through a neighborhood and I was just asking questions. So she was his foil, to use, like an acting word. She was the person asking questions, dropping questions. So they drive around these neighborhoods and they drop these videos, and that's all they are. Two people in a car driving a neighborhood, having a conversation about the neighborhood. Nothing particularly fancy or special even about the information that they're sharing. Just doing a tour and talking like brothers and sisters would talk about a neighborhood. Well, one of those videos went viral a year ago, 5,000 views. Now, here's the funny thing. Here's the story for both of you. All right. We didn't get any business. So here's this viral video in this massive community in Texas called Sugar Plantation. It has all these views. And my promise, not promise, but my suggested, hey, you'll get results off this. Not happening. Of course, as with all realtors, deflated. This doesn't work. Why did you tell me to do it? Blah, 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 blah. Got an email from him yesterday. No joke. Guys, this is real. Got an email from him yesterday where he's dealing with not one, and it happened like that. That one video, 2 leads, phone calls, not even emails, just calls on his cell phone. Both people that are going to do deals in the next 30 days off video. I guess I don't know what the point of my story is, but here's what I realized. He even said it in his email message to me. He said, I wasn't sure that what you were teaching me or telling me to do was effective. I've done these videos. I've had like 50,000 views. I hadn't done any business. I was really questioning, is this even going to work? And all of a sudden he's like, I'm on fire. I'm going to go out and I'm going to do 14 more videos tomorrow. He said some like ridiculous number. I'm like, whoa, slow down, just do a couple. But anyway, for those of you listening to the show, it can take a while, but I really do strongly believe, as obviously Nick does, because we've both established little pieces of our career on this. that video is the wave of the future. John, what do you think? Not about the wave of the future. That was a bad handoff. I already know what you think. But like, what do you think about the whole thing? Do you have any aha moments or anything that you'd like to share?
No, I definitely believe in the power of video. You know, I know through my other business that regularly people approach me and they said, well, we came across you through video, and then we went to your website and we saw more of your videos, we read your content, and then we decided when it was time, you were the person to approach. So I totally agree with you, but it does take time. It won't happen straight away. What question I wanted to ask Nick was scripted against freeform, because we do this podcast and we also video it, and you can see that on the Mel Wright channel and also on Robert's website. But we have a topic which we have an expert like you to come and talk about, and then we have some bullet points, but we don't script it out. And I've done a lot of podcasting, Nick, and I've only ever had one guest that insisted that everything be scripted out, and that was Amy Porterfield, the social media expert, and she insisted that it was totally scripted, that the questions were sent to her before the interview. Well, I think a lot of people think they've got to have to script everything out. What's your position about that, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's, I mean, I can understand why someone might want the questions for an interview up front, but to me, it's like, there are definitely situations where scripting your video in advance isn't even necessary, right? So for example, if you're going to, we'll do, videos that are going to go on our website that have to have a bunch of very specific information in them, that are going to be associated with graphics we're going to add later. And so for those kinds of videos, we do script them. In that case, we use a teleprompter and we literally just read the script back into the camera. I will say, if you want to do this on your phone, there's an app called Big View, BIGVU, that's really helpful for that. It'll even take the script and just automatically add them as captions in the video when you're done if you wanted to. So, there are some simple ways to do this, but I actually think a lot of people use scripting as a crutch. Or even a reason to procrastinate. They'll say, I want to make a video about this thing, but I still need to write the script, and then it's 3 weeks later and they still haven't done it. So my favorite version of video is literally what we're doing right now, is live video, because there's no editing. You can't edit it, right? It's like when you're done, it's already posted. A bunch of people have already seen it. Once you hit that go live button, you just have to keep talking, like you can't overthink your mistakes. So if you stumble over a word or mispronounce something, like you just keep going, right? And it's in the past and you stop thinking about it in just a second or two. Versus when it's pre-recorded, a lot of people, when they stumble over a single word, they will stop and they'll want to restart the entire script again. And that takes, that can become really disruptive. So there are contexts where I think scripting is helpful, but I would say, you got to remember, I think one of the things we got to remember about video is it's a way to build relationships with people. And if you seem too polished and scripted all the time, you're not being a real person, right? I mean, you almost got to think about when you share these pieces of content on social media, you're networking with people. That's what's happening, right? So they're getting to know you through the content. And if you were to go out and network and, go to a chamber of commerce or something and walk around the room and meet some people and chat them up, there's going to be some awkwardness. There's going to be some weird pauses. There's going to be some, forgetting names and things like that, right? That's real human behavior. And I think if your videos contain some of that kind of stuff, people will actually like you and trust you more than if everything you do is totally scripted and totally polished all the time. And I think, ultimately, I think a blend of the two is great, right? Because I think it's great to have some stuff that feels really organic and natural, and then also some stuff that makes you seem like a really polished business person that they can trust if they want to hire you. So,
Nick, it's kind of funny. Just let me throw my little thing and then you continue on, because mine is a joke. But Nick, you know what? John and I don't have any problems forgetting people's names. What we do is get them dramatically wrong.
Might as well go all in, right?
I'm so relieved. Robert had some troubles last week, listeners and viewers, because I just thought it was me. We struggled last week, actually, Nick.
Oh God, I was
what
terrible.
I was going to say,
so
Robert, it's time. Yeah, well, it happens. Robert, I'm just going to say it was time to actually wrap up the podcast part of the show.
Okay.
Hopefully, Nick, you can stay on for a little bit which we do as bonus content, which they can view on the YouTube channel, because I just thought the half hour has just gone in seconds, really. It's just been fantastic. So it looks like Nick's going to stay on and you'll be able to see that on our YouTube channel, the whole interview. Back over to you, Robert.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for tuning in to the podcast. We deeply appreciate it. We're going to ask you a small favor, John and I, and Nick, for that matter. I'm just going to throw you into the pie here, Nick. We would really appreciate it if you'd kind of drop us a review on our iTunes platform and tell us what you thought of the show, because most of our reviews are a few years old. Our audience is growing literally by 10, 20, 30% each month right now, and we couldn't be more excited about all of you. Show us a little of your excitement why you're joining and why you're listening. And with that, Nick, because we do want people to know how to get a hold of you, and if they
Sure.
wanted to do that, how would you like people to reach out to you?
Yeah, so I think first of all, check out our website, which is bizvideoschool.com. So bizvideoschool.com. There's a whole bunch of free video lessons. So if you want, you can get signed up. You can actually get a whole series of free video lessons that range anywhere from 1.5 minutes to about 6 minutes in length. That's a great way to get started if you're just getting into video. And then on social media, if you, again, just look for Business Video School. We should show up on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok as well. If you're using TikTok, we're having some fun experimenting with it at this point, trying to figure it out. So, but yeah, that's where you can find us. And, I would say, if you want to find me individually, just look up Nick Niehaus. It's Niehaus. I'm happy to connect on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram.
By the way, for those of you who want to make fun of me, which should be all of you, do not say Niehaus. That is how I opened up the show today, is Niehaus. That's my stellar pronunciation of names. John, how would people find you if they wanted to?
That's really easy. Just go to the mel-right.com, and there's loads of videos on there from loads of experts that their advice will help you. And if you want a free demo of the mel-right platform, you can just book a free demo with me, and it takes about 20 to 30 minutes, and I'm sure you're going to be blown away with what we've developed for you, the real estate agent. Over to you, Robert.
So for those of you who are tuning into the show, the small percentage of the audience that are my rabid fans, I'm going to add a comment to John's little statement there. So John has built a system that would be as effective as, but a little bit lower in cost than things like Bold Leads and other systems that all of you have heard of. I strongly suggest that those newer agents or agents looking for maybe a lower costing way, not lower quality, lower costing way to get into lead generation with perhaps a little bit more of a steady hand to help you as you segue into using digital lead generation. I think that's where MailRight fits into the grand scheme of things personally. And I think that John would be an excellent person for you to reach out to and talk to if you feel like anything that I just said fits your description. Yeah. In terms of those of you who already follow me and already know who I am, you already know that I'm an inbound marketer, that I'm an SEO guy, and that you can find all that information on inboundrem.com. I've got contact forms and service forms. It's a longer commitment. It's higher dollar. I don't anticipate that very many people will reach out to me directly unless they're later on in their career and looking for a way to really go beyond like making $200,000 or $300,000 a year. So thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. For those of you who are going to stay on for the bonus content, give us 3 seconds and we're going to be back with some really exciting stuff. Welcome back to the MailRight Show. For those of you that have hung in there with us, we're now in the video portion of our show. We're still with the amazing Nick Niehaus. And Nick is a video teacher, expert, really, it seems like, from our experience with him so far on the show. John's right. The 30 minutes that we did has flown by. John, before I leap into my question, I want to give you the chance to ask one of your own, but I have one if you don't.
Yeah, I've got one. So we've talked about the iPhone and the sound. It's a two-part question, which I'm notorious for, Nick. What's the next step up if you still want to keep using your iPhone to improve the quality? And then what's the next step after the iPhone if you want to move it a little bit further on?
Well, so to answer the first question, I think lighting is going to be the next step. That would be the next step I'd recommend. So if you got your audio sort of dialed in, there are, in terms of lighting, I mean, actually, I think one of the best sources of light is just natural light. It's just the light coming in through a window. The downside to it is it's completely hard. It's very hard to control, right? So some days you're going to have really bright light, other days it's darker, all that kind of stuff. So if you don't want to spend money just trying to orient yourself so that the camera is between you and a window or some other kind of light source, you're going to find you get much better lighting on yourself from that. And then the next step would be to invest in some actual lighting equipment, right? So we really recommend, if you have the space for it and you're not going to be moving them a lot, like you're not going to be going on site for a lot of your videos, softbox lights are going to be really great. They're going to give you very clean, even sort of lighting. If you're watching this right now, I've got a big softbox over here, and then I've got another one over there, kind of filling in the other side of my face. So that would be sort of the equipment that I would suggest. I mean, there are a lot of settings in your phone you can control. You can increase and decrease the resolution, play with the focus, all that kind of stuff. But the phone can only deal with what it's actually recording, what it can actually see. So I think if you add some light, that's going to help a lot. And then another thing is just turn off the other lights in the room, right? Because I think video lights have a certain spectrum. A lot of them are either intentionally close to sunlight or they might be a little bit cooler than that, have more like blue hues in them, things like that. That make you look good on camera, and a lot of them you can even adjust a little. The overhead lights in your house or your office are not designed for that, so they don't necessarily make you look like the right color on camera. They can actually change the complexion of your skin, and you don't want light shining down from above you. It's really unflattering in terms of the shadows on your face. So hopefully that sort of answers the first question. In terms of upgrading to another camera, I mean, that's really not my area of expertise, because we found that in really almost every case at this point, the phones are getting the job done. But I will say, I have a Panasonic Lumix GH5. That's the camera that we currently have. We upgraded from a D5500 Canon about 6 months ago or so, which was a very old camera, very reliable, basic camera, got the job done, but really didn't, it's only 1080p, and our phones are literally 4K now. So if you're looking for a better camera, that is an option for you. But realistically, I will say, of all the people I know who really make a lot of video content, you want to buy a camera when you can see, and this is really true for all equipment, is when you can see how that new piece of equipment is going to solve a problem for you, right? So if you've gotten to a point where you don't like your coloration, or you don't like the clarity of the image, or where you want to create like the blurred background effect, and I mean, phones even do that now too. I mean, it is remarkable what you can do with these. I just got this new S21 Ultra about a week ago, and I'm still learning all the little features and stuff it has, but it is kind of crazy. But that's what I would recommend. And then at that point, here's the thing: is like camera tech is always changing, and in 1 year, one brand, Sony was kind of the hot brand a year ago, and things sort of shift and change as the new models come out. So that will, in terms of the right camera, it might be something totally different a year or two from now.
Oh, that's great. Over to you, Robert.
Well, I'm going to add on a comment. So, Nick, I have been blessed enough to consult with realtors for over a decade now, talking about video. And some of the guys that I talk to are wildly successful for many years. They're basically the people that are making it so that all realtors hear video in their ear, because people came before them and made a success out of it. But here's what I'm going to say to this equipment conversation. To those that are listening, please understand, or watching, please understand that in my opinion, my humble opinion, that you really don't need to mess around with equipment beyond your phone unless you already have a major audience, which is kind of what Nick was saying when he said, hey, you've identified a problem. So let's say you are talking to 3,000 or 4,000 people every time you create a video, like that's something that's happening. And let's say that in the comments of a video that you posted to YouTube, you get people saying, I can't really hear you very well. Like, so if you have this huge audience and 10% of them are saying they can't hear you correctly, to me, that's the only time that I would even go out and invest in a $50 or $100 mic, which is something that these guys that we talked about earlier in the show, the lapel mic that you two talked about. I wouldn't bother with that unless I was trying to address a specific audience problem that was important to me in that moment. And then I'd spend the $50 or $100, because other than that, I'm just going to use the phone out of the box as it is, no add-ons, no plugins, no mics, no anything. I may use a stand. That's the one thing I've noticed. I use stabilizers, hand stabilizers. That's probably the one piece of equipment that I would invest in right away, is a stabilizer, which is a $30 thing most of the time. Would you agree with that, Nick, from what you know of it? I know you're not an equipment guy necessarily, but would you?
Well, no, I mean, that kind of equipment, sure. You know, tripods, tabletop tripods, like something to keep the phone from bouncing around is definitely worth investing in. But I will say this still, the newest model of these phones, I've compared it to using a gimbal when you're making mobile, like, you know, when you're moving around, and it's not that far off. I mean, the built-in image stabilization in these phones now has really gotten good. But yes, I agree. I mean, having stable footage, it's one of the easiest things to fix. And I think right off the bat, if you do want to make a purchase to address it, that's totally acceptable.
Awesome.
Yeah, I totally, in some ways, totally agree with you. I just wanted the listeners to understand. I think there's different types of video, and I'll be fascinated to hear what Nick thinks about this. What Robert's just described, when you're actually on at a home that you might be selling for a client, it's probably best, because of the things Nick and Robert said, is to keep using the phone. I was thinking more about when we had one of our guests, unfortunately I forgot his name, the agent in Montana, where he was doing kind of desktop, where he was describing areas. I think if you're doing those type of videos, you need probably a slightly better setup, but you could do the same thing using your phone, couldn't you, Robert? It's just there's kind of different types of video. I don't know what you and Nick thinks about that.
I mean, I agree, and I just like to keep conversations about, because here's how I perceive Nick. Nick is really talking about one of my favorite things in the whole entire world. You know, 90% of the world of real estate still does not leverage video in any way, shape, or form at all. Right. Period. Full stop. Okay. So we want to get those people over their fear of using video, and let's make that as simple as possible. Once you're over that fear, that small 10% of the audience, you know, Christoph has like 3 different video producers. He's got these guys that do staging videos. He's got aerial drone guys. He's got, and for him, all those things make sense because of who he is, how big his audience already is on video. Of course, why wouldn't you spend that little bit of extra money if you're sure your video is going to get 4, 5, 6,000 views? It makes perfect sense to me to put a little bit of dollars towards that, right? But if you're worried about making a video and having one person see it, oh, for the love of God, stick with your phone. Keep it simple.
What I was going to ask Nick is, like on that subject, I get also a lot of agents say, well, what am I going to talk about? Can you give some, I'm sure you must cover this in your training, what should you be talking about? Maybe you can give some ideas so some of our viewers will overcome that internal message. You know, what am I going to be talking about?
Yeah, that's probably, you know, one of the top 3 questions or so that we get on a regular basis. And, you know, I mean, I think number one is, you know, just don't always talk about business. I think when you first get started, a lot of people are tempted to just, you know, I'm a real estate agent. I just sold this house. You know, let me show you all the stuff I'm doing in my business. And I get it. And if your first few videos are about those things, like, that's fine. Just do whatever is going to help you get the first few videos done, right? But once you get up and running, I mean, you have to remember that especially on social media, people are there to interact with other people, right? They're there to be entertained. They're there to see what their friends and family are up to see, you know, baby pictures and pet pictures and, you know, all the kind of stuff we see on social normally. So if you show up and all you ever do is talk about business, people are going to start intentionally tuning you out. They're just not going to appreciate that. On the other hand, I mean, you want to mix it in every now and then. So we sort of recommend an 80-20 rule. So 80% of your content, 80% of your topic should be something that's not directly about your business and promoting it. And then 20% of it can be, right? So it's kind of like one in 5 videos can be a commercial, and then the other 4 shouldn't be, right? So from there, then to answer the question of the rest of the 80%, it really has to be stuff you're going to enjoy talking about. I think a lot of people get in and they think about strategically, what should I be talking about? What's going to attract, a bunch of people to me? And if you're too strategic with it and you try to go after topics that you don't personally find interesting or exciting, you're probably not going to keep up the momentum. You're probably going to stop after a couple of videos. So really kind of taking this, to the next level would be to think about who your ideal customer is, maybe take your number one all-time favorite customer. And, if that's kind of the person you want to attract more of, and then find your similarities, right? So what are the interests that you both share? What are some of the painful experiences that you both been through in life, right? Because interests are good, but it's also good to talk about, things that are a little bit more controversial or things that people have struggled through, because that's a way you can help them. And then find, we sort of recommend 3 to 5 topics. We call them pillars for your content. And then just come back to those topics over and over and over again, right? So for me, for instance, like I love soccer. So a lot of my content ends up being about soccer. We got an MLS team coming to St. Louis here in another year or so. And we've all been super pumped up about that. We sold the most pre-orders for season tickets in MLS history because there's like the biggest soccer-based, fans here in St. Louis area of anywhere in the country. So that's really exciting. So I can come back to it over and over again, right? I love, psychology and like the psychology of business. So I come back to those topics, and that's a little related to what I do, but it's not necessarily talking about video. And so there's just a couple quick examples, but you want to sort of pick these topics and continually come back to them, because that helps people identify you as someone that shares that with them. And that's how you build relationships. If you're always all over the place, you're going to attract some people with some content, and then the other stuff's going to attract different people, and it's going to be hard to sort of build that audience over time. So I don't know if that makes sense, but hopefully that answers the question.
That was great. Over to you, Robert.
I thought it made perfect sense, but I think we've hit our limit. You certainly have given us a lot of great bonus content. Yeah. And Nick, I love your educational kind of feel. I would love for John to because John manages the guests of the show almost 100%. And it would be lovely. I think I can already tell by his face and his expression, he's loved this show. So if you would be willing to come on, I don't know, 6 months, a year from now. And what I would like to suggest, if you're willing, is I'd like to, here's what I think would be really useful for our audience. Some case studies. You're teaching people, you're educating. So some people are going to not do anything with the knowledge, as we both know. And some people are going to leverage what you're teaching them. And then they're going to go out and they're going to have whatever experience they have. But at some point, some of those people, maybe a very small handful, especially ones that are excited, are probably going to reach out to you, their teacher, and say, I've had this extraordinary experience, which is A, B, C. And you're taking it from, I don't even know how to use my cell phone, all the way to I have extraordinary experience A, B, and C. I'd love to hear a couple of those if you're willing to remember and collect them.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely interested in collecting those ourselves as is, right? So yeah, I'd be happy to do that. I mean, I think we're still not quite to a year of the school being up and running. So we're about to cross that threshold here in another month or so. But we are, we're starting to see sort of those kernels of the video efforts people are making paying off. So I would think definitely in another 6 months to a year, we're going to have some really compelling stories to tell at that point.
You don't, to wrap it up, you don't mind me asking, how much is it to be a member of the school?
Yeah, so it's you have 2 options, yearly or monthly. Monthly is $97 a month. Yearly is $970 for a year. So you basically save 2 months of membership cost.
Well, I think it'd be a great investment because I think you've shown that you are a great educator and you're very knowledgeable. So,
thank you.
Like I say with Robert, please decide to come back when I'll do some outreach in 6 months' time. Please decide to come back. We'll have another discussion, Nick.
Yeah, we'd love to. I appreciate it.
So Yeah. Let's take us offline. But Nick, I am sending you. If you could just stop the live version and cut this out.
Yeah. Sure.
John.
So we're just going to wrap up the live part of the show, and we'll see you next week, folks.
Right.
See you soon. Bye.
But hang tight for a second, Nick, if you wouldn't mind.
I know.
Okay. Hey, listen.